Hi guys, it's me, Mr. Bertoch, your incredibly handsome, wonderful, and terrific science teacher. And in this video, we're going to be talking about DNA and RNA. So DNA is a topic that can be a little bit abstract because DNA is tiny and we can't really touch it or hold it or look at it. Technically we can because there's an experiment you can do, which is kind of cool actually, where we can actually look at DNA, but all you see is a little thread. But to actually see DNA, we need a microscope. So anyway, it's a little bit nebulous. It's a little bit abstract, but it's not that complicated really. And so we're going to talk about what DNA is and how DNA works and how it controls all of the activities inside of a living thing. So DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid, and you don't necessarily need to remember that, but it's a big word, and that's what it is, deoxyribonucleic acid. It is a very long molecule. A strand of DNA is several feet long, okay, like 6 feet long in some cases. I mean, it's a long molecule. And it has billions and billions of atoms in a single strand. And those atoms contain code. The code tells you, your body, what to do. Your cells read the code like computer code. It's like a program. And your cells know how to read it, and it tells your body how to grow. It contains the genes that determine the color of your eyes. It determines that you are going to be amazingly handsome, like me. I have obviously exceptionally handsome DNA, so it determines that you're going to lose some of your hair, sadly, when you get older, or how tall you're going to be, or whether you're going to have a unibrow or not, or whatever. All the things that are you, okay, are coded in your DNA. So DNA, a strand of DNA, is made up of sections, and those sections are called genes. And genes consist of several thousand or tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of bits of code that we call bases, which we'll talk about in a second. Okay, so a gene, like for example for height, would be a bunch of bases, a bunch of code all together in the same location on a strand of DNA. A section of that DNA is going to be that particular gene. So a single strand of DNA has thousands of genes on it. Okay. And in a minute, we'll talk about how the genes do the thing that they do. But first, let's talk about what the code is. So there are 4 different what we call bases. And those bases are the code. And we use letters to represent them, which are C and G and T and A. But the letters stand for something, right? They're not just random letters. So there is cytosine and guanine and adenine and thymine. Or I guess I said TNA, so I should have said thymine first. Thymine and adenine, okay? And those bases those are molecules, and they are like rungs of ladders. So the DNA molecule is organized. I'm sure you have seen a picture. If not, you're seeing one right now. A molecule of DNA is organized like a ladder. There are 2 ropes down the side, and there are all these rungs that go across. And you can imagine little tiny microscopic Mr. Bertoch climbing up that ladder. Well, those rungs of the ladder are made by combining two of the bases together. So, for example, cytosine and guanine. I think of guanine as the bat base because that's bat poop has a very similar name, but you didn't care about that random fact. But anyway, cytosine and guanine they'll combine together to form a rung, and they will only combine with each other. And adenine and thymine combine with each other. So C and G and T and A combine with each other, and they don't combine any other way. Okay, although it doesn't matter which one comes first. C could come first, or G could come first, and T could come first, or A could come first. That's irrelevant. But they only combine with each other. Well, how, pray tell, are you going to remember that cytosine and guanine combine? Well, conveniently, C and G have a very similar shape. Okay, they're made with round shape. You know, the letter C and the letter G have roundish sort of look to them. And T and A are made with straight lines, so it makes it really easy to remember. Okay, cytosine and guanine are going to combine with each other. Adenine and thymine are going to combine with each other. And the order that we see these listed, that's the code. And the code could be anything. So like a gene for eye color might be, you know, C, and I'm totally making this up randomly, okay? But it could be C, G, A, T, 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 A, C, C, G, you know, whatever, whatevs. And the other side is going to be, the other side of that rung is going to be the exact opposite. So if I start with a C on one side, I'm going to have a G on the other, right? If I have an A, I'm going to have a T. And that's how the code's going to be combined. Well, how then do we get this code out to the cells? How does the cell read the code? How does the cell know what the code is? So the DNA is trapped inside the nucleus of the cell. It never, ever leaves the nucleus of the cell. It spends its entire existence inside the nucleus of the cell. But most of the activities that are going on happen outside the cell. Well, how does that work? How does the cell know what to do if it can't read the DNA? Because the DNA is stuck inside the nucleus and the things going on in the cell are outside the nucleus. Well, there are these things called messenger RNA or RNA. RNA is a duplicate copy of DNA. So inside the nucleus of the cell, through a process called transcription, creates a little copy of a part of the DNA strand. It doesn't copy the entire strand at once. It does when it's replicating. That's a different process. That's when the cell's splitting apart. But during transcription, it just a single gene at a time unfolds. So the DNA molecule separates apart. Imagine a ginormous strand of DNA with thousands and thousands of genes on it. Well, one little tiny section, a single gene, controls some aspect of how you grow or what color your skin is or your eyes or whatever. Okay. Something about you. And your body, the cells need to read that section. So what happens is this little enzyme called polymerase, RNA polymerase, comes along. And it's a little machine. It's a little microscopic machine. And it zips part of that ladder, that DNA section, and then it goes inside and it makes a copy of the DNA. It actually duplicates the DNA section for that gene. And that little duplicate section is called RNA. Okay, RNA is almost exactly the same as DNA, except instead of two strands, it's just got one. And it doesn't use thymine. It uses uracil instead of thymine. So it's AU instead of AT, but that's really the only difference. And that RNA molecule then leaves the DNA, and the DNA is zipped back together, and that little tiny strand is a single gene. It represents a single gene. Okay, that RNA leaves the nucleus of the cell and it goes out into the rest of the cell, and it says, I have the instructions. I have been into the great and powerful nucleus, and I come bearing a message. And that's why we call it messenger RNA. And the cell does, because the cell is very obedient. It does whatever that message tells it to do. So if that message says, make this human have blue eyes, then that is what the cell does. It turns into blue eyes or whatever. Okay. So your body follows the program that is in the DNA, in the genes, and that those instructions get to the outer parts of the cell through messenger RNA, which are duplicate copies of the code inside the DNA, and it's pretty cool. In a later video, we'll talk about proteins, and proteins are pretty awesome. So proteins are actually the things that do the code. They're what follow the instructions. Okay, so if you want to see how RNA controls the actions of a cell fully, you should watch the protein video as well. Hooray! Hi guys, thanks for watching my video. These rambling science videos where I go unscripted and just kind of barf up all the science knowledge out of my head are part of a series that go along with an online class that I teach, which you can sign up for if you go to handsomescienceteacher.com. I also have a whole bunch of free resources for homeschoolers. I have hundreds of articles on every topic that covers your entire science curriculum from 5th through 8th grade. I have online games and quizzes, all curated and written by this handsome guy, a science teacher with, well, three degrees, but 2 of them are in science. So it's targeted right to and directly to your science students. So sign up, subscribe to the channel, and I release lots of videos. Also, in addition to these ones, lots of little short videos that are like 2 minutes long that cover science topics. Those ones you don't get to see my handsome face, but they're still good videos, and they're much more targeted, and those ones are scripted, so you don't have to hear me like you are right now going blah blah blah. The end. Subscribe. Thank you. Goodbye.